All right, everybody. We are live with the Working Fans podcast, and we are going to be talking 1990. We're out of the 80s. We're going to be talking 1990. But before we do, we talk a little pro wrestling here this week. And, you know, wrestling has been really good this week. I didn't think there was a ton of stuff. I did think, ironically, AEW was kind of a little bit hotter this week. I actually, even though that hadn't been the case for a while, storyline-wise, I liked it. We started a lot of new direction on AEW this week, right? Like we had MJF come out with the bar mitzvah thing. First off, too, straight up love that this guy is coming out here, you know, as like being a heel Jewish guy. Like he's like, we're the chosen ones, tough break. Like I just thought that was so awesome that, you know, he just didn't care. And it's a different slant on things.
I like that the Winnipeg crowd didn't care whether or not it came across as anti-Semitic. They were still willing to boo. They're like, fuck you. We don't like the Jewish people. We're going there. Fuck all of you. Boo. So good job. Good job, Winnipeg, for just not giving a shit.
Yeah, Winnipeg.
Fucking racist Canadians.
The Canucks. Love the Canucks.
By the way, Dave, I got to ask you a question before we get this shit rolling because you seem like you're a little down today, a little tired. Are you ready to podcast the shit out of this? Let's do this.
I'm a little tired.
It's 1990, baby.
Working on a work schedule, though, to like maybe change some things around. So we'll see how that goes. Be a few weeks into work here, but we're going to fix some stuff.
Absolutely. I'm doing 7 days in a row. I'm rocking and rolling. I'm ready to party. It's wrestling time, baby.
There you go. What's up? Putting that work in, baby. There you go. Producer.
That's why we're the working fans, because we work.
That's right.
We're fans.
We got jobs. We're not afraid to do the job.
No, we'll do the job all day. Ask my wife.
So, getting back to AEW, Sami Guevara comes out. Jungle Boy Jack Perry and Darby Allin. All right. Right away I knew, okay, we're doing the 4 pillars thing. And some of the lines were pretty good. MJF had that line about Sammy just waiting to get into his next backstage fight. I do like that MJF, like a classic heel, told everybody that they needed somebody to help basically carry them when MJF was part of the
state a fact. He stated a fact. That's what a good heel does. A good heel tells you what you don't want to hear. They give you a fact, and then you can't swallow it.
Right. But you also very much did the same thing. So I thought that was pretty funny.
What? It's not like he leaned on Wardlow for two or 3 years.
Pinnacle.
It's fine. Totally.
By the way, speaking of Wardlow, I wasn't going to talk about that. We'll get to that segment too, actually, because that QTV. Did you watch the QTV?
Stupidest thing I've ever seen.
I thought we were trying to bury the guy. Like they were talking about like he was a Batista wannabe, and then they made some jokes about, you know, how MJF took his momentum, and I'm like, that doesn't help get him over.
you realize that whole thing, and I don't know if you've seen this or not. Me having a wife, I've seen this. It's fucking TMZ does the same goddamn thing. It's fucking stupid.
I don't know who the girl was though. I have no idea. I couldn't even look
I
it
have
up.
no idea who that girl was.
I have no idea. But getting back to these 4, I thought everybody shined. I saw Sammy Guevara, Jungle Boy, Darby all had great lines, and this was a hell of a way to open the show. Maybe we're going to get a fatal 4-way. As much as they did a good job here, my one issue is if we get a fatal 4-way, say it's a pay-per-view, I don't feel like there's any doubt that MJF is walking out champ, though.
No, I think he is. I don't think they're going to put over any of those 4. Believe it or not, my dark horse in it would actually be Jack Perry. That's for some reason I think that they want to push this kid, even though I like Darby better.
Let me ask you something. I'm gonna throw a little curveball here. I'm gonna throw some matches at you. Tell me what match you want to see most on pay-per-view. MJF versus Ricky Starks. That's one. All right. I'm gonna give you 3 options. Option 2, all right, MJF versus Darby Allin. All right. Option 3, MJF versus Sting.
Wow.
Take a picture for you. Sting also puts his career on the line. His final match his only singles match he would have in AEW, and it's Sting versus MJF, and we're going to see what Sting can do in a one-on-one match at his age. No smoke and mirrors. Sting has not been seen recently.
It's ironic that you throw that one in there since we're about to talk about 1990.
Right.
We won't deep dive into why that's ironic yet. You're going to have to hold on if you don't know what happened in 1990.
Funny. I haven't even looked at these notes, but I do remember what happened in 1990. So that's
just a little thing happened in Sting's career. We'll talk about it in a minute. You're going to have to stay with us. But that's a hell of a way to end it. If you're going to end it going out on top for the World Championship. And that gives a hell of a rub to MJF to be able to. I'm going to go with that because I've seen the other two matches.
Right. I think it's the way to go.
Yeah. And quite frankly, it gives a rub to MJF to be able to say I ended Sting's career. Honestly, it's another thing.
When you look at other competitors, whether it's a Jericho, whether it's a Hangman or something like that, or a Kenny Omega, as much as I heard the people on Post Wrestling actually brought up this idea, so I have to give credit to that. But when I heard about it and I thought about it, as crazy as it sounds, because Sting is open, but the way Sting's been booked in AEW and the way he's been protected and the way everything, I think this is the most compelling match you could probably do, actually.
Well, plus against MJF, he's only going to have to do so much.
MJF can heal. And I honestly believe right now, if they were, say, coming up with an idea like this, Sting would honestly probably be working his ass off right now to get in shape and do the best he can for this.
If you were going to do Kenny Omega, this week would have been the time to announce it because Winnipeg would have blown the freaking roof off the place.
Yes, they would have. Now, let's get to the end of AEW Dynamite here because
Dave, real quick, right before we get to the end of AEW Dynamite, I do want to mention one other thing. Speaking of blowing the roof off the place, great reaction for Taya Valkyrie. Yes, being a homeborn Canadian, I thought she might be the person that wrestled. I applaud the fact that they did not put her into the match because it would have been easy. Holding her off and then bringing her around at the end was actually a great way to go, and they got a great reaction. I don't know if she's going to get that same reaction when we return to the States, but great job with that.
Yeah, I thought it was good. Obviously, when she came out to challenge afterwards, I'm like, okay, we're not booking this match right now. So we're definitely keeping the belt on Jade for a little while here, but it's a good setup for a good opponent. But yeah, the main event, very interesting. I did not think the House of Black was going to lose, and they didn't. But it was a hell of a match. But boy, these Canadian fans, they loved their Jericho. They loved their Omega. And as they pointed out on Post Wrestling, it was very interesting. Once the pinfall took place, you could have heard a pin drop, which is fascinating because they really bit on the fact that, like, oh, it's going to be one of their nights here. And I just thought, like, wow, like, that's the belief.
Yeah, they did a good job of making that crowd believe. We did not believe. We knew the House of Black was going to hold on, but that was a hell of a match. I don't typically like three-way dances with triple threats. That's not really. I don't really like a trios.
Yeah, I know, so many threes. But hey, and there was a good six-man match in the beginning with Dark Order and the Blackpool Combat Club. Where the Blackpool Combat Club continues to be more heelish, and I bring that up because obviously at the end of this, we see the Blackpool Combat Club fighting with Hangman and members of Dark Order onto the Alpha. Now, I have to say, before we even get to that end, I'm actually more interested now because now you got this fiery crowd and you're putting all these different interesting combinations with the trios here. You have main event level people, several main event level people, all in these trios matches. And they're doing something we talked about that I didn't think was possible. They have me kind of interested in this six-man championship now. And we end where, like we were talking about off air here, Hangman Page staring off against the Blackpool Combat Club, and right behind them, right when they're about to jump him, here comes the Elite, Kenny Omega and the Bucks, and they have his back.
Well, the funny thing is they obviously you have to be a pretty good fan because you had to have watched being the Elite and stuff of that nature to get to this point to really understand what's happened between all of them. That's that Hangman, the Kenny Omega dynamic, the Bucks actually being extremely close to Hangman, the miscommunications and how many times they've tried to make up. Really sad that they've been torn apart the way they are. So great to see them back together. And that's a group that can hang with the Blackpool Combat Club, unlike the Job Squad, which is the Dark Order, which nobody was sitting there going, well, Hangman's safe now, even when they added back Stu Grayson. Great. They added back a jacked up Job Man. That's fantastic.
All right. Now, I said we were talking about off air some WWE stuff too, real quick. But you know what? I think we'll hit that at the end of the show. Let's go to our intro, and then we'll come back with some 1990.
It is main event Jey Uso, baby.
1990. All right, baby, we're back. Little 1999 here. And AJ, let me kick this off here with some notes here as a stumble whore here. Here we go, 1990. February 6th, Sting kicked out of the Four Horsemen at Clash of the Champions for accepting a title shot against Ric Flair. I still remember this to this day. All right. Sting was a guy I wasn't initially really behind, but I loved how he came at Flair. Then we go to Flair Funk 89, and Flair actually, I'm totally in as Flair as a babyface because Funk was such a great heel. Then we have Sting Horseman back, and I remember thinking to myself as a young man, like, weird seeing Iron Anderson as a good guy. And Ole Anderson, well, very weird, but they're all good guys.
Wait a minute, Ole had at least been a good guy. Because remember, he had left the Horsemen. It was with Luger. And
I remember.
So at least Ole had been a good guy. Iron had never been a good guy.
But I remember thinking, like, oh, wow, the way they kept working together. And then I remember Sting had that title match. And I remember thinking, this is how dumb I was. I was like, this is really cool. They're all going to work together and have this match. This has never been seen before. Usually in my mind, like, somebody would turn on somebody here. But they're not going to do that. And then
like
they did it.
I was going to say, like the number one song of 1990 says, hold on. Because Wilson Phillips, with the number one hit of the 1990, hold on, they were speaking our mind. They said, hold on, Dave, don't believe this shit. They're turning on him. They're turning on him. Now, I want to tell you about poor booking. They booked this to happen in the middle of the Clash of Champions, which was fantastic, except for the fact Ole, Rick, and Iron had to go out and wrestle later that night against Muta, the Dragon Master, and who was the last one? Was it Funk? Whoever the last one was. They had to go out there and actually wrestle.
Buzz Sawyer, actually.
Huh?
It was Buzz Sawyer.
That's
point,
right.
Funk was already out. They had turned on him.
Oh, that's right. So, Buzz Sawyer.
Yeah.
So they had to go out there and actually wrestle, and now the crowd doesn't know who to cheer for because they just beat up Sting earlier in the night. It was absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, and on top of all that, it was weird in the sense too because Sting got injured during this segment, and he tried to come back, but they kind of messed up. Actually, he got injured during the part where he tries to.
He tried to climb the cage. Yeah, he injured his knee during that. And unfortunately, like the number one movie of 1990, that left him home alone because there was nowhere for him to go and he was out for the next 7 months injured.
So,
That's right. I got you the number one movie and number one song all tied in.
The work you're putting in today, AJ. Thank you so much. But you're talking pop culture. This is pretty good. And ironically, I got another story I'm going to tell you about this next thing. So February 23rd, Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage on the main event on NBC. Savage gets into an argument with referee Buster Douglas, who knocks him out. Mike Tyson was originally set for this, but he had got knocked out by Buster Douglas before the event. Okay, so more to that. Buster Douglas shocks the world, knocks out Mike Tyson in Japan.
Yeah.
Fun story about this. I remember seeing this fight at night on HBO, and back in the day, you could watch sometimes premium channels scrambled, even if you didn't have the TV, right? And I remember her, there's a Tyson fight on HBO. It's not on pay-per-view. That's strange. And I actually remember before this fight, watching it as a kid, I think, man, I hope Tyson doesn't take this guy lightly. Just because he had been nothing on pay-per-views all this time. So in my mind, I thought it was a little weird. Anyway, gets knocked out. Tyson doesn't show up, and Douglas is the referee. Now, here's the funny part. The way I understand it, I don't remember who said this, but basically, Savage had told Douglas, you better lay into me. You better hit me, or I'm not going to sell it. And he did. Now, I happened to catch this clip today. I had no idea I was going to listen to this, where Hogan tells the story on Bubba the Love Sponge. Now, this is Hogan's version of the story. Hogan was trying to make a match. Vince McMahon was trying to make a match with Hulk Hogan and Mike Tyson. All right? A legit match where apparently because Hogan had no injuries or anything like that, he was trying to sell out Tyson on the fact that Hogan wouldn't try to take him down, brother. Which I just start, that's funny in itself. Like, do you honestly expect me to believe that Mike Tyson would have been even concerned about Hulk Hogan? All right.
I do want to point out, though, Mike Tyson has always been a huge wrestling fan.
He's a huge wrestling fan.
Mike Tyson, and I'm not trying to knock him.
No.
He's not necessarily the smartest guy in the world.
No. But
he might have believed what he was watching on TV.
But Hogan continues, we got Buster Douglas, and Buster Douglas wouldn't work with us, so we had to do the match with Savage with Douglas as the referee because Douglas was scared. He thought we were going to pull something. And then Hogan went on to say, which we would have. Me and Vince had a plan. I'm like, this is so stupid. I can't even listen to this. I got annoyed. I stopped listening at this point. But, yeah, so Hogan telling a lot of tales in his older years. But
Hogan would have slapped him with the thermos like he did Bubba's wife.
All right, we got allegedly. I love this note that I got here. Sorry, Joe. This is funny to me. All I have is April 1st. WrestleMania 6. We don't need to know anything about it.
Please tell me. Please tell me that's not the first event that you have, because there's a shitload that happened in 1990.
WrestleMania 6 was famous for that's where the Warrior family took the title off of Hulk Hogan.
Okay, first of all, you mean infamous.
Yes, sir.
The worst wrestler in the history of wrestling got rewarded with the fucking world title off of Hulk Hogan in Toronto, Canada. It's a shit. It was one of the shittiest things to ever happen in wrestling.
Also on that card, Dusty Rhodes and Sapphire beat Macho Man Randy Savage and Queen Elizabeth.
Yeah, all the great wrestlers going over on this card.
Absolutely. Actually, this is a cool event that Joe had put in here. April 13th, All Japan, New Japan, and WWF present a joint supercard at the Tokyo Dome. Among the matches, Hogan beats Stan Hansen. Seen this, it's a good one. And Tenaru defeats Randy Savage.
That is a good one. That's actually a hell of a thing. That's anytime you can see that, that's going to be fantastic and fun.
Also, I'm going to skip ahead here a little bit. July 4th, Brutus Beefcake suffers a near fatal parasailing accident. You might remember this one.
We were that close to being free.
August, Jesse Ventura leaves WWE. Let's see. Sergeant Slaughter returns to WWE after a 6-year absence as a repackage as an anti-American gimmick, which is what it just basically started off. It would move on to more.
How about we talk about something that's important here real quick?
Okay.
NWA, this is the year that NWA actually transitioned to WCW. So throughout the year, NWA had events like the Great American Bash. It had its last event, which was Halloween Havoc. And then NWA actually transitioned at the end of the year into WCW for Capital Combat is when it started to transition. And then it finally had its own event at the end of the year, which was the Clash of Champions. So
Capital Combat, more importantly, is famous for when RoboCop made his WCW pay-per-view debut and had to back a stick.
Yeah, now as embarrassing as that would be, nowhere near as embarrassing as the fact that the first actual pay-per-view that's just WCW is the Starcade where Sting faces the Black Scorpion.
So this is interesting here too. Do you have that Sting highlight on your thing?
I do not.
Okay. All right. I didn't actually have it on mine either, but thankfully, me and you both have good memories and actually know this happened. So I had to double check here. So it is in July 1990, Great American Bash. Sting wins his first world championship against the Nature Boy Ric Flair.
Thank God the dudes with attitudes were around the ring to make sure that the Horsemen couldn't interfere.
Now, though, I can't tell you exactly what ones were around that ring. The dudes with attitudes were, some of the members were Paul Horndorf, the Junkyard Dog, and I believe actually one of the members who was actually probably there at that time would have been Elegante.
So it was Elegante, Junkyard Dog, Lex Luger, Paul Orndorff, Rick Steiner, and Scott Steiner were around the ring.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Now, September 24th, Herb Abrams holds, UWF holds its first debut TV taping. Gives a shit. November 6th, Jesse Ventura is elected mayor of Brooklyn Park, Minnesota. November 22nd, I'm going to add something to this too. We have The Undertaker makes his debut at Survivor Series, which was an event, by the way, at Hartford, Connecticut.
Yeah.
And that was also the one and only time we had the ultimate Survivor thing, where basically, which I thought was always interesting how it was done. Like the baby faces who survived, which was like Warrior and Hogan, took on all the heels at the end. But they never really explained why. And I'm like, how do we know that these guys are just all teaming up here? These guys are all good guys. Also, Gobby Gooker made his appearance on that.
Well, don't forget, on August 12th, and this might be why the AWA died, on August 12th, they had the Tag Team Challenge Series where Buck Zumhoff defeated Johnny Stewart to reactivate the AWA Light Heavyweight Championship. Way to go, Buck Zumhoff. Dave's a big fan.
Yeah, rock and roll, baby. The original rock and roller. Don't look up him too much. All right.
That's a rabbit hole.
And finally, one of my final notes. I like this one. December 26th, 74-year-old Lou Thesz wrestles his final match against Masahiro Chono at a New Japan show. That's pretty cool.
That's a great final note. I would like to actually add one more final note also. November 23rd, World Class Championship Wrestling actually held its final show as World Class Championship Wrestling before they were bought out and became Global Wrestling. So a little tip of the cap to World Class, which was one of those wrestling organizations that we watched as a child.
Yeah, GWF was Global ended up being a interesting promotion as some of the talent they started off with. They had like the Patriot, stop by, Scotty, Too Hottie, Scotty the Body, Scotty Levy, Raven.
Well, since WCW died that year, we should probably talk about who was born that year.
Okay, let's do.
We've got Gentleman Jack Gallagher was born in January 7th. We've got January 14th, Casey Catanzaro. She looks a lot younger, I think, than she actually is, to be honest.
I wouldn't have thought Jack Gallagher was that old either, honestly.
No, that's Alex Silva, Demetrius Bronson, Chase Owens, who I believe was actually listed as just randomly somewhere in 1989 on our last broadcast, was apparently born on March 7th of 1990. Jordan Devlin, Lacey Evans, Sawyer Fulton. I'm going to skip some of these because some of these just really don't matter. Bo Dallas, Mandy Rose.
So all these people are about 33 years old, 32, 33.
Exactly. They'll all be 33 this year. Here's one who you might not have thought was around 33. Danhausen.
I had no idea how old Danhausen was.
Yeah, he was actually injured this past week. He actually tore his pectoral muscle. And then I saved the best for last because she might be the best looking female wrestler on the planet right now. Zelina Vega. Zelina Vegas will be 33 on December 27th.
All right, there you go. So those are all your birthdays. You have some deaths too. Usually you get.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, thank God.
It was a good year for pro wrestlers to die that year.
Hey,
we've got Bronco Nagurski, who is actually famous because he was a tremendous NFL football player, but then was also a tremendous professional wrestler. Whipper Billy Watson passed away in February. We've got Gory Guerrero, the grandfather and father of all the Guerrero family. Pat O'Connor passed away August 15th.
Oh.
Dean Hart passed away, one of the Hart brothers.
Yes, that I think that's the one Brett wanted to dedicate match to too at Survivor Series.
And then somebody named Mike Mazurki, an American actor and wrestler born in 1907, passed away. So he lived all the way to 93 years old. Good for him, but we have no idea who you are, Mike Mazurki.
God rest.
Now,
also, fun fact too, just off my memory, it's like very interesting what you can remember around this time period. 1990 was the year that the Texas Tornado, Kerry Von Erich, won the Intercontinental Championship from Mr. Perfect, Kurt Hennig.
Oh, that is a good one.
At SummerSlam. Mr. Perfect actually won the title that year too in a vacant tournament because Warrior had to forfeit that title because he had won both championships.
So, yeah. So here's retirements for you also. I went out and did a little side work. Lou Thez retired. As you know, he wrestled his last match in Japan. Yeah. His career actually spanned from 1932 all the way to 1990. That is 68 years of wrestling. In a career that lasted almost as long, Nick Kiniski, who wrestled from 1985 to 1990, retired that year. Ole Anderson retired at the end of the year because he saw the Black Scorpion. Scott Casey, who you remember from World Class Wrestling, apparently once World Class Wrestling went down, nobody needed Scott Casey because he retired. Your favorite catch-as-catch-can wrestler of all time, Uncle Elmer, retired.
Yeah, great
in 1990. Otto Wanz actually retired in 1990. And this is one that saddened me. This is my last one. This saddened me as a kid because I don't think we realized how long he actually wrestled for. Raymond Rougeau retired and went to the broadcast booth in 1990. But he started wrestling in 1971. He actually wrestled for 29 years.
Yeah, Raymond Rougeau, a legit badass too. Boxed.
Exactly. Oh, one more for you, Dave, because I know he's one of your favorites. Frenchie Martin actually retired that year.
Martin. Good old Frenchie. Z.
So, out of all those things that happened in 1990, I want to flip this around on you, Dave.
Yeah.
What is your favorite moment from 1990? Matter of fact, let's focus in on two things.
Sure.
Which was a bigger deal to you in the moment, and which was a bigger deal to you if you look back now? Sting winning the world title for the first time, or Ultimate Warrior? They were tag team partners, both bodybuilders that came into pro wrestling. If we looked at them in their first year, they didn't really, neither one of them would we have sat there and went, wow, they're a world champion. But they ended up both winning a world championship in 1990. Which one ended up bigger for you?
So it's unique because I was a Warrior fan as a kid. Still like the Warrior, got a soft spot for him. But as much as people say that's his greatest match with Hogan, I never liked it. There's a few matches I like with Ted DiBiase, Savage, some guys who really knew how to bump for him. That would hold up okay, but not that
honky
match. Yeah. The crowd, I guess, makes it, but I don't know. It didn't do it for me. So it's interesting. So looking back at it, obviously I would say Sting is interesting because it sets off that career. But there's no getting around it. Warrior pinning Hogan in that time period is the biggest moment because it didn't happen.
Well, it was a clean pin.
Right. The only other pin we got was the twin referees.
Yeah, it was the first time in our childhood, even before he was Hulk Hogan, when he was in the AWA and stuff of that nature, you didn't see Hogan give up a clean pin.
Not often.
That's not, it was countouts, it was this, it was that. This was the first time I remember Hogan cleanly being pinned in the ring.
Yeah. But I would say I was really excited for Sting to beat Flair because in WCW and NWA, one of the things I did like about that, there weren't so many dominant champions that you felt like, oh yeah, Sting could win this, but he could not too. You just didn't really know. That was one thing I did like about NWA/WWF. Whereas WWF, I remember I wasn't too excited going for that because I was like, oh yeah, Hogan's going to win. And he did it. And I was actually happy when I found out Warrior won, because at that point I was actually kind of staled out on Hogan.
I think one of the things that we also forget now is how good the buildup was, with Sting rehabbing the knee with the injury, coming back from the injury, having the dudes with attitudes out there. Because we all thought the same thing every time Flair had a match. Well, the Horsemen are going to interfere, so what's it matter?
Right.
And this, I mean, how much Luger might have won the belt at some point if he had the dudes with attitudes. Thank God he didn't. But it's absolutely incredible what the build to that was.
I remember thinking how excited I was that Kerry Von Erich had won the Intercontinental title from Perfect, and what a great run that was going to be, but not really understanding that Kerry wasn't the wrestler that he used to be, and that wasn't going to happen too long.
Yeah, old Pegleg was only going to go so far with the Intercontinental Championship.
Shout out to Ross and Ma. Now we're still talking about your uncle when we guest of the show. We haven't been on a while, so.
Hey, first of all, I got that from Ross and Marshall. They found out the family nicknames, went deep on that one.
Yeah. All right. I think that's a bit for 1990. Let's just close out. We got 2 segments I wanted to talk about. 2 things.
Well, it's a main event, so we should talk about Jey Uso.
Well, one more thing before that, actually. It was announced this week. Edge is taking on Finn Balor at WrestleMania 39. So this match, we're adding more matches to the card. And Hell in a Cell, which I like, because now we're not doing the Hell in a Cell only pay-per-view. And I think this is a chance for this match to mean something. Personally, I still wish we would have waited a little longer for Hell in a Cell, because it's been overdone so many times. But I do appreciate the fact that we're getting away from just doing them all the time and doing them strictly as a pay-per-view event.
Well, this is also the first time that since turning heel that Finn Balor has mentioned his demons.
Right.
Do you think we get the demon?
Yes.
Because the demon's never wrestled as a heel.
No, that's interesting. Yeah. But that's definitely what we're implying here. And it's WrestleMania, and we want to make this as big as possible. Which makes me think,
does the crowd still react in a favorable manner to the demon?
Yeah, I don't know. I would imagine that it's a WrestleMania weekend. It's a hardcore crowd. They're probably going to be wild. The question is what Edge would do to get him back. Because that would be the one thing. Because what does Edge do to get him back on his side then as a babyface?
Yeah, exactly. That's going to be the interesting part. They're going to beat the shit out of each other. These are 2 pros.
I would think if it's a demon, like Finn's going to probably go over.
Yeah, these are 2 pros. Well, I wouldn't be surprised if Finn went over. Edge will put people over, and this is someone who, and quite frankly, Finn is that close to being back to a main event player.
Right. And honestly, here's another question. I wasn't going to ask you this, and we'll probably talk about it again in future weeks. Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns. Who do you see winning that?
I actually right now see Cody Rhodes winning it.
And so if Cody is going to win, we need to set up heel challengers.
Finn would be a hell of a heel challenger.
Absolutely. So interesting. We'll see as time goes on.
Now, if Roman holds on to it, Edge, one last run. We were talking about Sting going for the title one more time. Could be Edge's last run. He talks constantly about being real close to the being done.
Yeah, I mean, if Cody does win too, Solo would be another guy you built up. You know, he beat up Kevin Owens this week, so the stuff of that. So talking about the Usos, talking about the Bloodline. Final thing we're going to talk about tonight: Sami Zayn confronts Jey Uso. The storyline continues. I absolutely love this. Is tonight the night we set up Sami and Kevin versus the Usos, or do you say we're going to hold off a little more because they love to tease this? It seems like.
How many weeks do we have till WrestleMania?
Today's the 17th. I got to say it's probably 2 weeks.
Yeah, you got to pull the trigger. What, are you going to wait till the night before?
I mean, at this point, nothing would really surprise me. I'm just looking here. Saturday, April 1st. So, yeah, so 31st is Friday. So 2 weeks.
Yeah, they got to pull the trigger on it.
I would say. Also, one other thing I'll just throw out here, too. I just read this before we went on the air, too. It is rumored that Rhea Ripley and Charlotte Flair will main event night 1 of WrestleMania.
I'm not surprised by that.
Yeah.
That's I got to tell you, I don't know if you keep watching Instagram or not, but I keep seeing on Instagram Andrade keeps showing up in the posts with Charlotte wearing the Real Latino Man t-shirt. So it's funny that that keeps popping up.
Well, I love this storylines we talked about. It's great storytelling. And if you want to hear about great stories, check this out.
Read about the Northern Wrestling Federation in the book presented by Russellville.com, The Pro Wrestling Vault, Volume 2. Hear the story of Roger Ruffin, the man who trained Carl Anderson, the Monster Abyss, Jordan Clearwater, Chris Harris, and Jillian Hall.
Plus 45 other short stories including Jazz, Bobby Eaton, Kamala, Thunder Rosa, Mario Mancini, Scott Casey, PJ Black, Kerry Morton, Sal Renaro, Jeremiah Plunkett, Colby Carino, Bam Bam Malone, and many others.
Get your book today at Russellville.com. Russellville. It's where wrestling lives.